Hello everybody and welcome back to the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel. I'm your host Ari Stamatakos and today we're back with another episode of Player Spotlight. Now for those who haven't seen this series before, firstly there's 7 episodes of this where you can go back and watch after this one, but basically this is where we go through some players who are on the periphery of the Socceroos squad and just look at where they lie in Graham Arnold's plans heading into the World Cup in November. As you can tell by the title and the thumbnail of this episode, it's going to be on RILEY MCGREE, so let's get into it. So as we start every episode of this series, let's go through who is RILEY MCGREE. Well, he's a 23-year-old advanced midfielder / attacking midfielder. Started his career at Adelaide United, playing 27 times for the youth team before making his debut against the Western Sydney Wanderers in 2016. In his first stint at Adelaide United, he played 17 times, scoring once before leaving to go to top division side in Belgium, Club Bruges, at the end of the 2016-2017 season. He only spent 6 months in Belgium before making a loan move back to the A-League for the Newcastle Jets. He was very prominent in that Newcastle side that made the rise to the grand final, including scoring that scorpion kick goal against Melbourne City in the semi-final. The next season, he returned back to Belgium before moving out on loan again. This time to the team, he actually scored the scorpion kick goal against Melbourne City for that season. He then got a transfer back to Adelaide United at the end of that loan spell, where he experienced his best season yet, scoring 10 goals in the league and 3 times in the cup competition, including in the FFA Cup final against Melbourne City. At the end of that season, he won the Aurelio Vidmar Club Champion Award for the best and fairest player at Adelaide United that season, as well as winning the club's Golden Boot. He earned himself a move to MLS side Charlotte FC before being loaned out to Birmingham City for 18 months before making a permanent transfer across to Middlesbrough, another championship side where he currently plays his football. He's made 9 appearances for the Socceroos, starting twice, and as we always do on this series, let's go through who RILEY MCGREE is on the pitch, his game style, and let's have a look through his player profile. So as we always do on this series, let's take a look at RILEY MCGREE's player profile. Now, he plays the majority of his football as a number 10, as I mentioned at the top of the show, but he also does like to play as like an advanced number 8 on the left or right-hand side of a midfield 3, kind of like a Mazzala, as we've spoken about with other players on this series. But despite being left-footed, you would think that he would like to occupy the right-hand half space to allow for the overlapping right back and for him to be able to cut inside and get those in-swinging crosses into the box. But really, he actually likes to occupy the left-hand side, the left-hand half space in particular, as we can see by his heat map from last season. Now, he more often than not rather occupies his left half space. Now, what this allows is better connection between the overlapping left back, as both players will be able to either go outside and hug the byline and hug the touchline, or can cut inside and get those in-swinging crosses into the box. Now, this creates overloads on that left-hand side, which allows him to not be man-marked out of the game as such, and this allows him to have a lot more influence on the game because he's able to have a higher level of output playing on that left-hand side, because he's able to get more opportunities to get crosses into the box, as well as being a good outlet ball for Middlesbrough, especially last season. Playing on that left-hand side, he can drive out wide as well, can take the left back on, but can also cut inside and play the ball to the 2 strikers that they've got up front. Now, when he plays on this left-hand side, you can see that he likes to go wide as well as occupying the half space. Now, this allows for these angles that he can make as a left footer that most other players, especially right footers, can't have these angles playing on the left hand side, because a lot of players expect him to cut inside, whereas because he's a left footer, he's more often than not going to be going out wide and getting those crosses into the box from positions where defenders and left backs don't really expect him to get the crosses for. Now, furthermore, he likes to make direct runs from these positions, drawing the defender close to him before either pinging the ball into the box or getting it out to the left back. Now, while this doesn't show in like stats or in assists or in like big chances created, etc., he's a very integral cog to the Middlesbrough machine, especially this season. And last season, we see by the heat map how much he occupied on that left-hand side and how much of an attacking outlet he was on that left-hand side. However, as you can tell by the heat map, there is a little bit on that right-hand side, and when he does drift to the right, he likes to play more like an inside forward, like a traditional modern-day inside forward, using his tricky feet and good technical ability, his agility as well, to get past players and really cut inside and act like a traditional wide midfielder, especially in the modern era. Now, if we look at some of his stats from last season, he had 1.82 successful dribbles per 90, which ranked top for Middlesbrough last season, and 14.26 accurate final third passes per 90, which ranked first for Middlesbrough as well. Another stat that really shows how much of an attacking outlet he was for Middlesbrough was that he had 1.5k passes per 90, which ranked second for Middlesbrough last season. So I can see that despite playing some of his football for Birmingham last season, in the second half of the season, he came into the Middlesbrough side and really acted like a true number 10 in a sense. Despite playing as a number 8 at times, he was the real traditional number 10 in that team, being that offensive output, or having that offensive output, being that offensive outlet, and acting as like an anchor that like shudders from side to side just in front of the back line and really connects the midfield to the attack. So that's what we've seen Riley McGree offer for his club sides, especially Middlesbrough last season. Let's take a look at what he's offered for the Socceroos so far in his career. As we do with every player on this series, let's take a look at their Socceroos career to date. Now, he made his first appearance in a 7-minute cameo against Kuwait in a 3-0 win earlier last year. His first start came against Chinese Taipei, where he earned himself man of the match with 2 assists. In this game, he played on the right-hand side of midfield, and he occupied the similar areas where we just spoke about, where he occupies for his club side, playing on that right-hand side, being an inside forward, getting into those advanced areas, and using his stature in a sense, and using his physicality to really get beyond the defense and really act as this physical right winger, cutting inside and being a real offensive presence for the Socceroos. His last appearance for the Socceroos came against Vietnam in the qualifiers for the World Cup. He came off the bench for Tom Rogic with 15 minutes to play and ended up scoring a goal in the 4-0 win. He was in the squad against Peru and the UAE earlier this year, but didn't feature in either of those games. He has never been able to establish a concrete position in the Socceroos system, partly due to Graham Arnold's floating between a 4-2-3-1 and a 4-4-2, so he's never been able to establish a real defined role within the national team setup. The accompany this with the fact that the position that he plays in and the positions that he likes to occupy, they have so many players in those positions that are of high quality. Look at Hrustic and Rogic just as examples. He hasn't been able to always find his feet in the Socceroos, and those two players have always been higher in the pecking order, just based off talent-wise, and also what they've done at Socceroos level. Now, as we do with every player on this series, let's take a look at where their future lies, especially heading into the World Cup in November. So as we finish up with every player on this series, let's take a look at where their future lies for the World Cup. Now, his position at the World Cup will come down to a couple of factors. Now, firstly, it's coming down to his form heading into the tournament. Now, he isn't a player like Aaron Moy, Matt Ryan, or even Hrustic to an extent where, regardless of game time or form heading into the tournament, they're just too good a player not to play, and they're too integral to Graham Arnold's system not to play. He needs to establish himself, especially at championship level, to give himself a shot at the World Cup. He's already started the season pretty well, scored a goal in Middlesbrough's most recent game at the time of recording, so he has already started the season pretty well. He just needs to kick on and really give himself the best shot at forcing Graham Arnold's hand, in a sense, and forcing him to play him, because he's just in that good a form. Secondly, the second kind of factor that will come down to his game time at the World Cup is Graham Arnold's system. As aforementioned, he does like to pivot between a 4-2-3-1 and a 4-4-2 based on opposition. If he continues with the 4-2-3-1, it would be hard to see him get a game, considering the likes of Moy and Hrustic are almost guaranteed to start, and I don't think McGree has that defensive ability to play alongside Moy in a double pivot. The only kind of scenario I can see McGree fitting into that system would be if they put Hrustic on the right-hand side, where he's played for the Socceroos a couple of times, and then McGree can fit into that number 10 role, but that would mean dropping someone like a Mabil or a Martin Boyle, so it would be tricky to see where he fits in that system, and similarly, it would be tricky to see where he fits in a 4-4-2 system, because Moy, borderline undroppable considering how well he's played in the cameo that he played for Celtic just recently. And Hrustic, once again, if he gets that move away from Eintracht Frankfurt and starts to get more game time, you would almost consider him undroppable as well. So, considering those two players and how much they offer from an offensive sense, you would prefer someone like a Jackson Irvine or someone like a Cam Devlin to offer a little bit more defensive security. So it would be tricky to see where McGree fits into either of those two systems. And the third factor, if you were to call it that, is the availability of Tom Rogic. Now, with the uncertainty around Rogic, whether or not he will feature at the World Cup, it will kind of come down to this in a sense, because let's just say Rogic doesn't feature at the World Cup, McGree will be kind of the next player like that will just replace him in whatever role that he was going to play, whether that's off the bench, whether that's starting, whether that's playing off the right-hand side, or even as a false nine. McGree will take that place of Tom Rogic. Whereas if Rogic does feature in Qatar, it's almost... I would find it hard to see him starting any game just because of the talent Rogic possesses, and unless Rogic doesn't play any football from now until the World Cup and McGree absolutely kills it in the championship, it will be very difficult to see. But very difficult to see him starting games. But it will be interesting to see how McGree can transform himself and establish himself heading into the World Cup. There is space for him to play on that right-hand side if the Socceroos want a more auxiliary type winger that can drop into midfield and create a little bit of a midfield overload. That could be an area that Graham Arnold could progress through and could try and train Riley McGree to play in the national team setup. But it will be interesting to see, and I think we'll all be watching with a keen eye some Middlesbrough games this season to see whether or not his form can continue, and whether or not he can really establish himself as a true Socceroos player, because we all know the talent that he has and we all know what he can do. He can produce moments of magic, so we just need him to get some form under his belt, really get some continuity within his game and continuity within his body, etc. And then he can make a real case for the World Cup in November. But yeah, that's where McGree's future lies. Hopefully everything can fit for him, and hopefully he can make an impact in the World Cup. So yes, thank you all very much for watching another episode of Player Spotlight. That was on Riley McGree. Make sure you leave a like on this video, subscribe to the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel, leave a comment, leave your thoughts on this video, and leave your thoughts on what other players you'd like to see given a Player Spotlight in the future. That's all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. See you guys next time, and goodbye.